Welcome to Transatlantic Wrestling Talk. I'm your host, Andy, joined by my co-host, as always, Dale. How we doing, my brother?
Hello, Andy. Welcome back to the world of wrestling. What a trivial time in our life. Lots of good going on, and then we also have some stuff inserted that's a little bit of crap, but we're back to actually doing our thing here. We're talking about our favorite parts of wrestling, which has not been recent. Only kidding. It hasn't been so bad here. If you talk about looking at the live streams that we do, we do sugarcoat in a bunch of nice things here. But we figured let's go back to a time where I'll get to how my personal feeling is, but back in 2001, October 21st, okay? And this is in St. Louis, Missouri. No Mercy, 2001. Andy, what was your overall feeling of this? Because I'll tell you what, man, this is a very weird time for us, but you first.
I loved it. I loved the whole dynamic of this in terms of the talent. On the other side, probably which something that's going on in AEW at the moment is I found myself really confused and trying to keep up with the whole how many titles there were on this show. They were everywhere.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, it's just if I think it's more special if you don't hold the title, which means that you have character development at that point.
Mm.
But I'm actually saying how this was a very weird time and probably the world at this point, because the attacks of September
It
11th took
was, yeah.
place a month prior to that. And,
Mm.
I think we all have the visual idea of The Rock being at the front of the stage for SmackDown taping at that point. I
Mm.
believe they were still being taped, leading the locker room out there. And I do believe Vince McMahon made a nice speech before the event, too. Not
Yeah.
this event in particular, but I think it's a whole. We've talked about this with Over the Edge. The show must go on. That was a different reason why we probably would disagree why the show would have
Mm.
gone on. But I really do believe that the WWE at the time said people need this. People need this entertainment, and entertain they did with this, my man.
They did. You know what? Just to go back to the September 11th, it's funny you should mention September 11th. I was talking to a friend the other day, and they were telling me that they were in Orlando, Florida, when the September 11th happened. And they said, like, dead surreal, you'd expect them to, like, they thought they were going to have to stay in Orlando and all this stuff. But it was like a day later or something like that when they were going home. They got on a plane from Orlando and they were escorted from Orlando to Heathrow Airport in London by two Typhoon British fighter jets.
Wow,
Escorted them all the way.
wow.
And he
Okay,
said you could look out the windows both sides and see them side by side all the way back.
was anybody of not that he's not relevant, but was there anybody political on that flight either? No.
Nope, nope. It was just a normal transatlantic flight.
Wow, that
Yeah,
is crazy.
yeah.
I never heard that. That's
No,
it.
same. I've never heard it before, and I was like, "Whoa!" Do you know what I mean? And it was just relevant then because you mentioned that, and then it's like it was just a conversation we were having the other day, and I was just like, "Wow."
Yeah, it's amazing. At that point, the world responded in a way of just solidarity at that point, and being from New York and on Long Island, I knew a lot of people that this affected in a
Mm,
lot of different ways. I was in high school at the time, and which I'll wrap this up with, how this ties into wrestling. But I do remember at that time I was going through a pretty surreal time in my life, even prior to 9/11. And I actually kind of stopped watching wrestling at that time.
mm,
And I'll wrap it up in a second. But for that reason, I was watching this pay per view with kind of like a first time lens.
mm. Yeah.
And I just remember people were holding flags up in the air in the stands. It was nice to see. But this is when, a month and a half later, you could actually go back into those storylines. And away we go, my friend. How we
Well,
starting off?
I was the same as yourself. Just to go back to this very quickly, is I
Okay.
was not watching this at the time because when the Twin Towers actually got hit in September 11th, I was in basic training with the military. So I was actually already in the British military at the time. Well, when I say I was in, I wasn't in at the time because I was going through basic training, so I hadn't actually gotten into it at the time. But I was actually on a base when we seen because they never forget them saying they used to have green, amber, and red was
Hmm.
always the highest alert rate, and they said, but that never happens. And then obviously when September 11th happened, it went right to the highest level of warning on the bases, and it was crazy, absolute crazy time. But because of that, I didn't watch this myself because I was still completing, because in October I was still going through my basic training, so
Yeah.
I was away at the time. So too far, this is the first time I've actually seen this pay-per-view. I used to watch wrestling around this time, but obviously for them couple of months I was gone, and
Life
I couldn't.
happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And obviously I think at the time I just didn't go back and watch this because I just didn't really see the relevance in it. So yeah, it was really, really good. But as they did at the time, let's get the show back on the road. First match we had on this card was the Hardy Boys versus the Hurricane and Lance Storm. Do you know what? One thing I just want to say straight off the bat is the Hurricane was so underappreciated as a character. The way he worked it, the way he did it, he was so good, wasn't he?
For sure. Totally over, as
Mm.
people say now. They're totally over. He was paired up with Lance Storm, somebody that it's not really going to be rocking the crowds and earth shattering there. However, most capable worker out there.
Let me ask you this question though: do you believe this kind of dynamic works? So when you've got somebody like Hurricane that can play the crowd and have the meeting out the palm of his hand, and you've got someone like Lance Storm who very, very good in the ring, but doesn't have that same connection with the audience. Do you think that dynamic works where you've got one person that can draw the eyes to them, and then you've got the one person who's probably not as strong in that sense?
It's been proven over and over and over again. This works.
Mm,
Hella. I mean, all right, look at Matt Menard and the other guy that's in 2.0 that in AEW.
mm.
They're a good tag team. They're kind of discount nasty boy looking, but they're that guy carries himself well and they still work very well. This is over and over again. Okay, here's another one. Judgment Day 2004. When we looked at that, we had the pairing of Rico and Charlie Haas, and we thought how funny this was, and it worked out very well.
Yeah,
Even these guys that are on the mid card level, teetering
yeah.
back and forth between low and high mid card, it always works and it always gets the crowd going. But this is kind of a weird time because you still have WCW as this thing, and when you see that, you automatically think, all right, so here's some titles that are out there, more titles, which is pretty funny that you said that with AEW beforehand.
Yeah.
Um, the Hardy Boys have them. And it's like, well, how did this happen?
Well,
You
this is a
know,
question I want to ask you because I know you used to watch TNA back in the day, and I've never really, I like Impact nowadays. I watch it now and again, but I never really got into the whole TNA background. Did the Hardy Boys ever win the TNA Tag Team Championships?
yes, I believe they did, but that was like, that's when that broken stuff happened, I
Mm.
believe, if I recall.
So, if they were to win the AEW Tag Team Championships, that would mean they would be the first ever tag team to win every major organization's tag teams in history.
Yeah, that it has to be at that point, unless
Do
they
you
go to
think
New
that? Do you
Japan
think?
too.
Do you think that was the plan until what happened with Jeff?
No, you know why? Because there's two people that work there that would never let that happen,
Yeah, the
that
Bucks.
have egos.
Mm. Okay, well, let's get back to this match anyway. I thought this was a really, really good match. Didn't really like the whole WCW Tag Team Championship, and with the way the alliance and everything was still going on here, I didn't like the fact that some WWE stars had damn titles. Didn't really think it was, warranted or relevant, really. But it was a solid match. These guys that are in that match there, you just have to list them: Jeff, Matt, Hurricane, and Lance Storm. They're always going to have great matches, and also the one thing that I noticed is there's always so much chemistry between Matt and Jeff and Helms as well.
They
Because
said it during the match too. I believe, was it Cole on commentary that actually said this? No, he wasn't too much of a mark for anything outside of WWE at that point. Might have been Heyman that brought it up. I think, who were the commentators for this? I forget.
it wasn't Heyman, was it? It was. Let me just check. Bloody
Oh,
hell.
it was Ross and Heyman. It was Ross and Heyman. So what? It
Oh,
was
sorry.
definitely
Yes, it
Heyman.
was. Yeah, it was.
So Paul Heyman did bring, no, Jim Ross might have brought it up, how they constantly, that they always interacted with each other even prior to, the merger of WWE and WCW. So that was I enjoyed that because it peeled the curtain back a little bit, but not too much. Like the fact that they say there's life prior to WWE, And that was something that they would actually years later they would kind of step back from.
Yeah.
We watched it. What was it? Money in the Bank when it had Tyson Kidd and the British Bulldog, and they didn't refer to that. Davy Boy Smith Jr. was on
Mm.
there, and they couldn't even say British Bulldog's son. They said Bret Hart's nephew.
Yeah.
That when they try to erase history, I'm not a fan of that. You know that
No.
because I think
No.
it's the stupidest thing. Like, come on, dude. If it walks like a duck, whatever.
Yeah.
Quack quack.
One thing I did want to say here, though, is that I wasn't a fan of the finish. I don't like this whole Lita getting involved in everything, and this is where they were at the time. I thought it devalued the Hardy Boys, in my opinion.
Look, the outside here really devalued the whole match too. Like Lita, I understand you're banging Matt, okay, which would lead to a really great angle in the future, a few years from now. Maybe one day we'll get to that. But between her and then Molly Holly and then Ivory coming out, or Mighty Molly, it was just a lot of clutter on the outside.
Yeah.
But it was a decent match for an
Mm,
opener for a pay-per-view. This is what you want,
yeah.
and the Hardys were, untouchable at this point, I think,
Yeah.
as far as a tag team.
Let's say I've got no problem with it. I thought it was really, really good.
Yep.
But it is what it is. Hardy Boys get the win here anyway. They'll go on with the belts for a while longer, and obviously we know what their career goes. But we move on now. We've had
It goes
Vince,
it, it goes behind bars several times over.
yeah, and then we've got next on the card Test defeated Kane. Really like this match, Really like this match. I think sometimes big guy matches get a bad rap. I think they really do get a bad rap. A la Omos versus Braun and Sound Jewel.
Can't wait next week. Can't
Mm,
wait next week for that
but
cluster.
in this one here this is what you get when you get two really solid workers who have done the time and everything else, working together, and they put on a really good show here. Do you know, I was listening to a podcast not long ago with Dynamite Doll,
Hmm.
Dynamite Kid's daughter,
Hmm.
and she was saying about when Test was paying his dues in Canada and he lived in their basement.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So Test wasn't just a WWE guy; he'd obviously done his time before he got there. So you know,
We've seen Test on a few pay-per-views that you and I have looked at.
mm,
And the interesting thing about it is that I've noticed that every 8 months, 9 months, he gets that push to do something,
mm,
and or him going up against Kane. And I'm not going to say he won clean because he didn't, but to take a win against Kane, who was still a monster at that point and got kicked in the balls, it actually does mean something. I do believe that some wrestling companies like AEW lately has done this a lot, where every 6 months there's a push for guys like Dante Martin,
mm,
Preston Vance. Now you're going to have Hobbs with his push that they let go of a while back too after he beat Ricky Starks a couple pay-per-views ago. It's like it's like a semi-annual push that's like so I'm not going to say tests were unmerited, but this is just really weird, but what direction were they going in with tests? Because remember, to win his job, he had to win a battle royal because he ended up getting immunity when the
mm.
invasion took place and was kind of teetering on the side of, actually he was a heel at that point too. Nobody liked him, and he was a good heel. Even when he was in WCW, he was a good heel too. I'm sorry, not WCW, ECW, for the ECW brand. That was made for him
Mm.
if you were just going to have a big baddie.
Yep. Do you think? Why do you not think Test got pushed more? Do you think it was? I mean, I was thinking about this the other day, and I don't know whether it's anything to do with the whole Stephanie McMahon thing. And I'm not saying because Triple H got involved, because we all know this storyline. Test was never, there was nothing like that. But what I mean is, when he was in that storyline, he maybe they didn't see him carrying it enough, or whatever he didn't do, and
So I don't know. We've talked about whether or not you need to have a title to actually, succeed. I think he succeeded, and I'll tell
mm,
you why. I'll give you two words: Kelly Kelly.
yeah,
No, I'm only kidding. No, I really think about
Stacy
it.
Keibler.
Yeah, to testicles.
Do you know he dated her for 4 years?
Well, it was Kelly Kelly
No,
too.
no, he dated Stacy Keibler from 2001 to 2005, and he
She
dated Kelly Kelly for 2 years, to '07 to '09.
Okay, and here's the really crazy part about this.
Hmm.
Kelly Kelly was on, I think, a Desperate House, not Desperate Housewives, but like one of those Rich Housewives shows that are over here in the States that you definitely
Yeah,
don't get.
we definitely do get them.
Oh crap. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Um, so she was on that, and she said that she spoke with a medium, like a psychic,
Hmm.
and and Tess was calling out to her.
Yeah, Jesus Christ.
I I was like, "Oh my god," when I heard that. Um, no, think about it. Do you remember that match he had against Shane McMahon where the posse got involved and this was for
Yeah,
Stephanie's honor? I mean, that's I'll put it out there, one of the top 10 feel good moments of the 90s
yeah, yeah,
for wrestling. Think about that. And they embrace, and Briscoe and Patterson were helping him out too. It visually it was very funny, but it was excellent.
yeah,
Excellent. I they let him. He had a very good career. A year later, he'll do the Un-Americans. He'll do that. He's a better heel, if you ask me. Think
yeah.
think of a talented Luther Reigns.
Right. Well, Tess gets the win here, which is awesome. You know, it really was. I know there's a bit of finger to and throwing in there and stuff, but Tess gets the win, which I was kind of like, oh, do you know what I mean? Which shows it's done the job.
Yep.
And you know, doesn't really affect Kane because he'll go on and have the career he does anyway. But it just shows you sometimes people can lose a match and win a match, and it doesn't always mean everything in thingy. Next one we had was Tori Wilson defeated Stacey Keibler in a lingerie match.
Yep. Yep. This definitely got the juices flowing for John Laurinaitis. And if you think about it, this would actually become the antithesis of the women's division in WWE.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
sad.
yeah,
So I blame this match. Visually, it was nice, but
yeah,
I blame this match for actually ruining the women's division for the next 10 years, 10,
yeah,
13 years.
yeah. All I can say is it's doing better now. Anybody who wants to moan about the direction of the women's division in wrestling, go back there. Until then,
Not right.
well,
And not only that, look, we did an in your house couple of months ago, and Alundra Blaze, who was the women's champion at the time, ended up is sporting a T-shirt and just promoting that. She didn't even have a match. That was the
mhm,
only instance of that.
yeah. All right. Next, we go from the to the great Edge versus Christian. Always a classic. Nothing wrong with this at all.
Kurt Angle just came out and said how Christian is probably one of the best wrestlers that he's ever been with.
Hmm.
He said that he could do everything between the pantomiming, between the wrestling itself,
Mm.
between the acting, between the over the top facial gestures, between the motions himself, and understanding how to build a match. Andy, why wouldn't you start a company and have him book?
Yeah, you would. You would. I don't know why. I mean, to be honest with you, just I know we keep always slag AEW off. I don't mean to, but it frustrates me because I really want them to do well, and I don't feel like they're doing what we hoped they did. But one of the things is when I look at the likes of Regal, of your Christians, of your Jerichos, and that, you think to yourself like, how can you be getting it so wrong when you've got so much good people there?
Actually, I will say this. I think Christian has done the best there.
Hmm.
I will pound the table and say that William Regal has done no contributing to AEW. He's
Mm.
actually
You know, but that's if
he
he's allowed. This is the thing.
uh, they are. He created his own stable there, and he's actually because of that he's actually ruined Brian Danielson there. Brian Danielson
Yeah.
was the best heel there, and now he's just relegated to Drek. Okay,
Yeah.
and John Moxley, and you have this terrible group, and Claudio, whatever I'm calling him Cesaro, just for
Yeah. Yeah.
argument's sake, and this guy Wheeler Yuta. What has Regal done? Now, if you ask me, I think
I'm liking the bit where he done his promo with MJF the other day. I thought that was
that's it.
awesome.
That's it. But if you have Christian coming out there and saying, Luchasaurus, you're my big baddie, you're my muscle, that's working wonders right now. And the promo that he did on Jungle Boy last month just shows how, or a couple months ago, just shows how amazing Christian has been.
Yeah.
And Christian will continue this in this match. As we go back to 2001, 21 years ago, where
Mm,
he's the Intercontinental Champion. We have a ladder match with him and his brother, Edge.
yeah. And I tell you what, Christian's music back here is just fire.
At last, you're on your own.
I love. Do you know the bit I love is when it goes further on this song and it goes, Urano, Urano. Absolute quality.
I don't like it's just, and it was just so simple. Not
Mm,
really simple, but it was just like like, it was a Jim Johnson who gets no credit for songs like this, but he'll get credit for Ultimate Warrior, and he should.
yeah,
We're not saying he shouldn't, or Vader or stuff like that. But this is awesome. Okay,
yeah,
comes out. He is on his own. He doesn't have his brother anymore. He's a singles competitor now, and a damn good one too. But his brother is equally as awesome.
yeah.
And this is where he comes out with Rob Zombie.
What a song that is as well.
Have you ever seen Rob live?
No, no, unfortunately not.
Seen him several times.
I nearly got to see him and he actually cancelled the show. So back in '07. And I actually, the same weekend, because I was so pumped to go and see Rob and it didn't happen, I actually went to see Steel Panther were playing not far from them.
Okay.
So I actually went to Steel Panther instead, which was awesome. So
Yeah.
it took away the sting a little bit.
Hold on one second. Hello, Bob. Yeah, you owe Andy a show. Thanks. I've seen him several times over. He's just awesome.
Yeah.
And he comes out and you just think of Sting with that one. And I've also seen Alter Bridge and they play Metalingus and I'm like, oh man, Edge has always had some great songs too,
Yeah, yeah,
hasn't he?
yeah, it's actually.
You think you
But
know me?
well, he's a fan of Kiss, isn't he? Do you know what I mean? That says it all. Have you ever read
Probably
his autobiography?
not yet. No,
That's
I
awesome.
like the A&E biography they did on him.
Yeah. Well, his book is brilliant, absolutely brilliant.
I'm sure.
And Jimmy Conderas does the forewords for him because they were like,
I didn't know that.
yeah, because they're best mates in real life. Both Canadians, aren't they? Well,
Look, because they're just so happy-go-lucky people, and these
yeah,
guys actually have personality. But the fact that there is a lot of undertone as far as their background, like between Christian and Edge, these guys were on the road with each other. They were in school with each other. I mean, think about how they were brought up, and
mm,
then all of a sudden, here it is. They're
yeah,
on they're featured in a ladder match, nonetheless,
mm,
and I will applaud Vince McMahon for giving these guys more than 20 minutes to do this
yeah.
match.
Well, 22 minutes, 32 to be exact. But the whole drama in this match was great from start to finish. And I think Edge winning this was the right move at the time because they'd gone through a little bit, hadn't they, before this? And, it was the right thing to do in my eyes.
For sure, yeah. I mean, think about the next year or so for Edge at that point, though. Who he's going to win tag team gold with Hulk Hogan. He's going to be part of the SmackDown Six. Yeah,
Hmm.
which is something that you can't take away from anymore.
No, and hasn't been replicated since.
It won't be either because of how the show is. I mean, then again, though, I'm watching the Bloodline. It's just great TV.
Oh, brilliant, brilliant.
Eh,
But
I
it's
mean,
just different though, isn't it, from that SmackDown 6? And that's the difference, I think, is the bloodline they're carrying it where I think with SmackDown you could rotate so much that you could get a lot more out of it at the time.
there's going to be highs and lows on every type of show. Even with this, I mean, we just talked about a bra and panties match, and you and I are men that enjoy that type of stuff. But it's not. It does nothing for us. I've seen stuff like this live, and I never understood why everybody would whistle and catcall. To me, it's just virgins.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Right, we'll move on to
great
the next
match.
match. Yeah, great match and Edge wins.
Could be the match of the night, maybe not
Was
yet.
was.
Let's see. Let's see
Mm,
what I think later on.
well, well then. Right, so we move on. We've got Dudley Boys versus Big Show and Tajiri. Didn't like this match much at all. Didn't think it was great. Thought it was just off pace a little bit. I don't know whether it was I've given them a bit of a raw ride here or because I've just come off the Edge and Christian match and it's just like I'm a bit exhausted at this point.
Yeah, well, they knew it too, and that's why they're so good with actually sequencing pay-per-views and matches the way they are.
Yeah.
I'm not a fan of hey, we need to just throw in something. Obviously, you're not going to put in a major heated feud after that match, like you said, let me out thing. I think it's okay to have an interview in ring at this point to kind of
Mm.
let people out. That's fine, or some segments backstage. The match itself doesn't make sense. It's just like, all right, Tajiri has, a big guy that's looking out for him now, which okay, like this has been done before. I get it. It's not like Kane and X-Pac where it just all of a sudden this magical team happened. I have a question about this though. Okay. We're not too far removed from Big Show, right? Being this, returning guy in Royal Rumble, right? Do you remember him floating in infamy this much though?
No, no. This was the time though where he was quite big and he was starting to go downhill, wasn't he?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that they always wanted a spot on him because he was still like a guy that's a feature,
Mm.
like historically, when these battle royals would come to town, right, in the 70s and 80s, who was the guy that would come there that everybody would go to see?
Yeah,
Andre the Giant.
honestly.
And that's something that will never be replicated. And my whole thing is that I actually wrote into K100, and Conan agreed with me and even said about how booking battle royals are. Not that
Mm.
we're talking about a battle royal, because I said to him, my email was, look, I'm like, I'm near 40 years old. I've come to terms with the fact that I never want to see a battle royal ever again. I said AEW just puts these together, and they were talking about how it's just like, well, it's debugging the rating system that they have, or the ranking system that
Mm.
AEW has, because it's like, well, why are you having a number one contender spot like this? And it just doesn't work.
No.
Then Conan says, hold on, I got something, and I agree with him. He goes, I hate booking battle royals because he does AAA still.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And he says the only people that care about it are the last four in there, and that might not even do something for them. And he says back in the day they used to mean something because it's just what we said here.
Mm.
But you have a feature like that, and that's what Big Show was, But you're right, he was still getting bigger.
Do you think that because of the way WCW presented him as the Giants, do you think that hurt him and it took a long time for him to get away from that, even when he was the Big Show?
When Hogan said, "Oh, I felt you ready? Oh, I felt the Giants' hands on me. I felt Andre there, dude."
Yeah. See, I don't know. Sometimes putting somebody in that same kind of box or category can do more damage to people than it can actually help them.
You're setting a bar really high at that point.
Yeah. It's all right putting somebody in a match with someone or in a tag team or giving them the nod and sprinkling some stone cold dust on you or something like that. But
Yeah,
to actually compare you to somebody, I think sometimes can have a really negative effect. And I believe it did that for the Big Show for a long time.
he's made his money though. He's
Mm.
had a long career, and you got to remember something. You remember when McIntyre won the title at
Mm.
WrestleMania, and then the next night on Raw, who did he face?
Yeah, Big Show, yeah.
Because it's like, whoa, this is a pairing, huh? And you forgot
Mm.
he was on the roster, and it was a
Yeah.
very good match.
And one thing I will say as well is I met him one time and he's an absolute sweetheart.
Yes, he is good
He's
dude,
such a good man.
jolly, jolly.
Yeah. Oh, and can't speak to you enough or anything like that. He's not kind of, he's just a nice guy. Do you know what? You can tell, can't you, when you meet certain wrestlers and you think, yeah, you're a dick. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Or something like that. But with him, it was like you could tell he was genuinely just a lovely dude.
I got the biggest asshole I've ever met wrestling wise. You ready for this?
Go on.
Sylvain Grenier,
Was it? Yeah. Yeah.
dickhead.
Interesting. Bubba Ray Dudley for me.
That's no surprise there.
Yeah, absolutely
That's
not
not
bad.
no
And
shock.
I was looking at him and I was thinking, yeah, like at the time I was still doing the mixed martial arts and stuff, and I was thinking like I could probably kick your ass, you little divvy. Do you know what I mean? And I was very close to saying something, but I didn't. I just walked
And
away.
coincidentally, those two have a beef with each other, Grenier and Dudley.
Yeah, and do you know what the funny thing about it is? On that side of things, Bob is an idiot, but Devon is the most sweetest man I have ever spoke to in my life. I interviewed him, didn't I, for Wrestle Buddy? I also spoke to him quite a few times myself off, like on the phone and stuff. He's an absolute sweetheart.
You knew it
Absolute
was going to be that
sweetheart.
way.
Yeah.
Yeah, you hear him. He carries himself very well.
Oh,
With
he's just
with
such a lovely
respected.
man. Even like when we finished the interview and he talked to me for about 25 minutes. I spoke to him just as long as what the interview was, near enough, off camera. And he was like, here's my number, contact me and stuff. So I contacted him when he had his back surgery, spoke to him, and he was lovely. Do you know what I mean? And
Good dude.
such a sweetheart. Honest to God, such a sweetheart.
That's what you want to hear.
Yeah. Well, the Dudley Boys rollies over here. Great. You know, they move on with the titles for the Alliance. And then we'll move on to our next match. We've got Undertaker or Biker Taker versus Booker T. What was your thoughts on Undertaker's biker character? Did you ever like it?
Yeah, yeah. I did enjoy it. I enjoyed the fact that here he is then transitioning to, hey, look, I'm really American, but so is
Mm,
Booker T. So it
yeah.
doesn't really work in this match. But when you're showing pride for your country, I'm not going to crap all over it.
Mm.
You know,
See,
especially with the circumstance.
I'm not gonna crap over the country stuff, but I never liked this character.
I understood it because when he's been in the business for 10 years at this point,
Mm,
over 10 years at this point,
yeah.
and he's earned his keep, he's earned his due. You
Yeah.
know, I think that one of the more underrated WWE title reigns is him as Big Evil as a heel.
Yeah.
I enjoyed the crap out of that. You know, where he beat Hogan, right?
He did.
Yeah, I enjoyed that a lot.
Yeah.
He's not going to be a heel yet because his hair's not cut yet, right?
No, but I think like with this one here it is. I know his hair was cut. Yeah, his hair was cut here, I
Mm,
think.
okay.
But I don't know why. I think it was because I've always enjoyed the Undertaker character so much. I just never accepted it. Which, you know, it is what it is. But in this one, I think he's still trying to find his feet with the big evil character, isn't he?
Well, I know
Uh,
where I know the feet. I know where the feet are though.
yeah, go on.
They're in my yard.
Ah. And then you've got Booker T, who again is coming off. He come in hot as the WCW champion. He lost that belt. I think the belt helped him when he first come in, but I think it exposed him, taking it away from him. And I feel like he was still kind of, you know, not really hitting the mark here in WWF at this time.
Right. Okay. But take the take that out of the equation. He was still great for WCW though.
Oh yeah, yeah, he was. But I just
Yeah.
think himself, I just weren't believing him yet. And then I think it took me about another. It was like 2003, 2004 when I was like, he's a proper main event guy. I don't get me wrong, I thought he was good for WCW, but I think here he looks more of a mid carder than anything else.
Yeah, he'll find his footing. He'll be
Yeah,
okay.
which he
He'll
really
make it.
does. Yeah.
Spoiler alert. We talked about this too because this was the same match at Judgment Day 2004,
Hmm.
and you had a very charismatic, a more charismatic Booker T against Undertaker. You know, Undertaker was then the dead man again,
Hmm.
and Booker T was a voodoo witch doctor he used to actually, try to defend himself against the Undertaker.
Hmm.
And that's when they had him in full character and bloom. And then, later on, we'd see Booker T become King Booker and win a title and just be awesome.
Hmm.
Um, you know, so
Yeah.
maybe if I crown you, you'll be the next MMA champion.
Well, the crowns haven't worked out this year. Hopefully next year when we get another King of the Ring, we'll get some good. Um, we'll actually get some good
Let's
King
do
and
it.
Queen. Instead of Queen, where's Queen Zelina then King Xavier? How'd that
Hey,
work out?
I, dude, I've been saying she's been such a waste. I'm just
Nah,
sick of.
I made up though that she's in that Phantasmo now. Do you know what I mean?
Good. I don't know why they took the other girl out, but maybe because she didn't talk on the mic.
She's not a Selena. Selena will fit in well there, which I hope she does. But anyway, Undertaker defeats Booker T. We move on to our next one. Awesome match. This Chris Jericho versus The Rock. I think this one for me. First of all, it's the only match on the cards where it's two WWF guys against each other.
Yep. Yep. For the
Yeah,
WCW belt.
yeah. Makes sense. But also, I feel like with this one, it's the only match you could have done that because even though Chris Jericho is a WWF guy, he was a big deal in WCW. Well, he wasn't a big deal in WCW. He was with the fans, but never with the hierarchy. And I think this whole story was based on kind of Jericho putting his fingers up to Bischoff on this one.
Yep. Yeah, and he got rewarded here.
Yeah.
If you're loyal, you will get rewarded here.
Yeah, yeah,
Eric Bischoff just didn't see anything good with Jericho, I guess.
yeah.
But Jericho made the best out of the time he had, and even had a bodyguard named Ralphus, who was just a very intimidating, fluffy foe. But and Goldberg really tried to squash that and really got pissed off at that. And Jericho stood toe to toe with Goldberg about it.
64 arm bar.
Hey, look, I don't even think Goldberg's done 64 moves in his
Yeah.
career.
Do you know one thing I want to say though in this match is a lot of people, The Rock as an in-ring wrestler is very underrated.
He'll do that stuff, but he's got the
Mm.
worst elbow drop I've ever seen.
No, he hasn't. He's got the best elbow drop ever. You dare.
Okay, yes, he is very underrated, but
Mm,
we focus on some things that are crap besides the elbow drop and then the sharpshooter. His
mm,
sharpshooter's the worst. Okay. However, the man knew how to milk it. The Rock knew where the camera was at all times, and so did Chris.
mm,
These guys positioned themselves for greatness and visually amazing stuff. You got to remember, The Rock took a chair shot. You'd always see his hand come up. However, the selling afterwards was believable. Like,
yeah,
oh,
make you forget,
somebody,
wouldn't it?
yeah, it's stuff like that. Because that chair, he would do this, and it was just so faint. It would
Mm,
soften a blow, and then the contact would be made. Okay,
yeah.
just impressive here, and you would see that in this
Mm,
match. This was a 23-minute banger of a
yeah.
match.
And one thing I did like in this as well is when Jericho locked in the walls of Jericho, he'd done it the proper way
Yeah,
because that was the proper wall. If you go back and watch this, guys, you will see it's not like he does it now where it's just a stupid Boston crab. It was the actual walls of Jericho back then where he would put his knee against the back for leverage, and it looks so different but so good. And I hate the way that he does it now.
yeah, no, I agree with that. I mean, you think about it with Jericho now, he obviously isn't going to be moving around as much as he does. However, some of
Mm,
the stuff that he's done in the past, he's we talked about Halloween Havoc, right? 97, and he's facing Guido and does the proper walls of Jericho where he's arching and leaning back, and this guy that's underneath him is starting to look like a bow from a bow and arrow getting plucked. Visually it's working out.
yeah, yeah,
um the Stephanie McMahon stuff was very weird inserted here.
yeah, yeah.
What
I
did
didn't
you
really like it. I mean, I understand why they done it because obviously it's always going to be to protect the Rock, but I didn't really like it. And I think with me is I'm always one of them. If I don't like it, but I understand it, it doesn't hit as hard on me.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think, what did you think of her overall as a character?
I liked her. I always liked Stephanie. I always think she played a really good character and she always done really well. Never had no bones with Stephanie.
Does she know that though?
Well, I'm saying that though, I probably did have a few bones, but I
Oh,
didn't have no problems.
okay. I like, I appreciated her, but I also thought she was just such a pain in the ass, dude.
Mm,
And just hearing her on the microphone, obviously she's polished herself up a little bit now, which is nice. But I really think that is her inserted into storylines really has a negative effect on,
yeah.
just things. When they did that authority angle a few
Mm.
years ago, it was okay, but nothing really too crazy.
And okay, well, we got the finish anyway. Stephanie threw the chair and we seen a finisher. What finisher was that, Dale?
It was the rock bottom.
Um, it was a finisher. Jericho was finish was tippling with a little bit at the time. The breakdown, but you might know it as something else.
The breakdown.
Yeah, that was the finisher that was called at the time. He called it the breakdown. He used it for a little bit, and then another annoying
Like the
character.
flatliner?
No, skull crushing finale.
Oh, that's right. He did. Okay. Yeah.
And he used to call it the breakdown, Mr. Jericho.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because I haven't even looked into it yet, but I do want to look into it and see if he actually gave Miz that move.
Look, probably. I mean,
Mm,
think about it. The Miz was probably just like, I'm awesome. I'm going to take this.
yeah.
Very good move, though. Very good. Look, it was just a great match overall because you showed a humble Rock, which doesn't happen often, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And this ends up becoming, you know what, The Rock's going to be destined for better things in the future, which he will be shortly after this. And we'll get into that in a second. But I really do think that this is the rocket that was strapped to the ass of Chris Jericho in his career here.
Yeah.
And he's now a main event player.
Mhm.
I
I
think the
also
main
like
thing,
the fact that The Rock with a bit of always WWE drama, which I always liked. You know what I'm like. I like to be entertained as well as to watch the wrestling. And I like the bit where The Rock comes over and gives him the chair and then just walks away. And it's like, you know what you done, and
yeah,
just off he goes.
yep, yeah. And this is just, the antithesis of Chris Jericho becoming, hey, you know what? I'm going to be the best out there. And deservedly so. Come on, think about this. This match was just entertaining from start to finish, and you knew that you had
I,
entertainers
I
there.
think the fact that Chris Jericho doesn't get talked about in the same light as The Rock, Austin, Hogan, and stuff like that is a crying shame, because I feel like he has had one hell of a career. The guy's creative mind. You know, people go on about Pat Patterson with the Royal Rumble. Let's not forget Jericho made Money in the Bank.
Yeah,
It was
yeah.
Jericho who come up with it. He's come up with the Ayatollah of Rock and Roll. The how many things has he come up with? Do you know what I
Look,
mean? The
I'll
list.
t- I, I'll tell you what though. The Money in the Bank. I get what you're saying. It's great, but I we have to applaud Triple H right now because of what I sent you the other day.
Yeah.
He's taken away the event of Hell in a Cell, okay? And I hope this ends up going along the lines of taking away Money in the Bank,
Mm,
taking away all these other things. And that because that will mean that it means something. The
mm.
the time on the calendar should not dictate the match type.
No, and the thing is, I like the only one that I want to keep hold of is Extreme
Rumble.
Rules as well.
Mm,
I will keep Extreme Rules because I feel like that's the way it goes for one night. We go extreme. Do you know what I mean? I don't mind that. I don't mind that at all.
yeah,
But
as long as you have matches that make sense,
yeah,
like a strap match. As long as I love Cross a lot, but the strap match is it called for? I don't know.
yeah, yeah. That's it. Okay, well we'll move on anyway to our main event of the evening. Mr. Stone Cold Steve Austin versus Kurt Angle and Rob Van Dam. I really like this match. I am not a fan of triple threats, but this one was okay.
You and I echo the same sentiment on triple threat matches because
Mm,
it always feels like there's somebody that just has to be stepping away. WWE has done triple threat matches better because it's not just set up a spot, cooperate, execute spot,
mm,
new person comes in. It's not that round robin feel that we see from other promotions. RVD is in a very weird place here. They
mm.
don't know. They are really hammering home that he is a legit character and a legit threat. And I like that he's interacting with Vince McMahon in this. And there's
Mm.
also which side is he on? Who's he going to be with? Is he with
Yeah,
WWE?
yeah,
So good storyline there. Um, I will commend him and Kurt Angle for their cardio in this match.
yeah, yeah. Because they
It
carried
is
Austin a lot, didn't they?
okay. And I'm going to say something right here. I truly believe this is the weirdest part of WWE at this point.
Mm,
And I want to state this just for people that have watched. I believe that the Attitude Era died when Steve Austin shook hands with Vince McMahon. I
yeah,
I stopped watching for a while and passed this by. Then later on in 2002, I should say, in 2002, I kind of rolled back into it. The Ruthless Aggression era started SummerSlam 2002, where Lesnar would actually come out and beat The Rock.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
This is the in between here.
Yeah, it is a bit of a tweener situation, isn't it? And I think this match in general was kind of like me personally. I don't think Austin should have had the belt at this point. No disrespect to him, I really loved Austin. He's one of my favorite. You see me bloody on the live stream nearly in tears when he come back for WrestleMania. I was big Austin fan, but at this point, you could see he was hurting.
Yeah, yeah. At this point, you're right, absolutely. And then there was a very funny backstage segment where
Mm,
Steve Austin is telling Deborah to tell Michael Cole things.
yeah,
And, I like him too. You kiss my ass.
I just hated Deborah at the Klingon. I couldn't stand her.
Yeah.
But in this match, as I say, it was really, really good. The ending, I didn't mind either, where Shane gets involved and that, because, and do you know what? At this point, I think they'd already decided on Rob Van Dam. I think as you were saying, that they were trying to make him out to be this big star in this one, they're pushing that home. But the finish on this to protect Rob Van Dam, I think like that's what it does.
Kind of, yeah. With just two, there's always protection done in a triple threat when you think about it.
No, no, yeah, but there is. But normally, it's they put a person in that match to take the pin, and that's where
Yeah.
you'd think to yourself, like, Rob Van Dam would probably have been that person, but they decided not to do. Well, even though he took the pin, the way he took it with Shane getting involved and Vince getting involved and stuff, I feel like that protected him a lot, and he didn't have to do that.
No, it didn't. They didn't because 6 years down the road, who knew that what they would do with ECW and the revival there?
Mm,
And Vince said, "You know what? This is going to make money," and it did. For
yeah,
the month that Rob Van Dam had the title, and then he got caught with weed with Sabu and ended up getting,
yeah,
you know, canceled. I guess you could say. Nah,
aye,
no, he came back over and over again.
yeah,
Look, I'd also like to point this out there, between also with that statement I said about the Attitude Era and stuff. Andy and I enjoy gimmick matches a lot, but they need to fit as far as an animosity field goes. And with the country being the way it was,
yeah,
what would be the issue with having Kurt Angle win again
yeah,
at the
yeah.
time
I
against
think to be
Sauce?
fair, I think they knew Austin was on his way out, so I think they were trying to milk him for all they could.
Look, we would go, you and I would go into WrestleMania in 2002 and talk about The Rock and uh no 2003, I'm sorry, where The Rock would fight Austin and that'd be the last match. That's something that
Mm,
you and I have discussed, and it was just Austin was still floating around. He was hurting, you know.
yeah, yeah,
I but this match was taken. It was great. It was a
yeah.
very good match.
Right.
What
Overall on this pay-per-view, what would you say?
as a first time watcher, like intently, I'm gonna go with the 7.
Yeah,
I think
yeah,
this is a lot of nostalgia there.
yeah.
Um, I think that there's a lot of obviously lingerie matches are just there just for cheap gags and whatever. The Big Show Tajiri match didn't need to happen. You didn't need.
Mm,
There's other tag teams on there that could have
yeah.
handled through this. I think
The,
the APA was on there too. APA was actually on the undercard, if you ask
yeah,
me,
on the there was nobody but Canyon.
against
That's,
yeah, Canyon and Hugh Morris, and then Billy Kidman defeated Scotty 2 Hotty. You
yeah,
know,
they were the dark matches, weren't they?
right? But you could have had that in there because Kidman was getting pushed a lot for WCW
Yeah, yeah.
at the
That's it.
time.
And it was still a title match as well, wasn't it? It was cruiserweight title match, that one, on
Yep.
the dark match. One thing that I just want to say on this one as well is I feel like I would have given a higher number, but the only thing for me is it's this whole alliance time is always poison for me, and I think it always affects my kind of thoughts on where things are because of it.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, because this is not this is something that could have gone wrong if Ted Turner didn't give out guaranteed contracts that were honored and people sat at home collecting paychecks. This could have been something fantastic.
That's it.
We're
And
not.
do you know what? Just to go back to that though, with the paychecks thing, people go on about people sitting at home collecting paychecks. I would have done exactly the same as what they done,
Absolutely agreed.
110%.
Absolutely agreed. That's why when you see Ric Flair walk out and be the co-partner with Vince McMahon, that's because his contract was up and he's going to go back to wrestling. You know, whether or not that was the right idea, but still, it did lead to one of the most under talked about moments in history, and that was at WrestleMania 2004, where Evolution faced Mick Foley and The Rock.
Mm,
And for 1 second, Ric Flair was in the ring with The Rock.
I know, I know.
People don't talk about that.
No, no, it's so close, wasn't he? But I'm not. I'm not going to get into that with you because I don't think Flair's up there as much as what he thinks he is.
Oh, we know about that. I know your hate for the Nature Boy.
I don't
Not
hate him.
H.
I love Nature Boy, but the way people go on about he's a goat, in my opinion, he's not. He's a solid mid to upper carder.
Guy knew the business and he knew how to operate it and still knows how to operate the business better than anybody out there right now. Well, few
Mm.
people.
you know, there was a lot of people that knew the business well. That, you know, not saying that. It's just when people say Rushmore, and I don't think he'd done that for people. Do you know what I mean? But
Maybe someday you and I will create our own mountain, my friend.
yeah, that's it. Well, guys, that is it. So just a few little bits and bobs before we finish. So, 2001 No Mercy was the last No Mercy to be held under the WWF banner, because if we move to May 2002, they changed to WWE World Wrestling Entertainment. So we're just on the cusp of the changing over of the guard here. And also in March of 2022, we had the end of the alliance, the end of all this crap.
Thank God.
When the brand extension was introduced, which was the first ever Raw and SmackDown branding that we still see to this day, or when it suits them. So yeah, this was kind of a real transitional period for wrestling, which was kind of interesting. So if you haven't seen it, go back and watch it, because it's definitely worth watching if you want to see kind of where that transitional period. And I feel like it's relevant now, because I feel like at the moment we're going through that same transition.
Yes, without a doubt. And like I said before, you know, we have guys now that are coming up through NXT that Hunter actually trained, and now he will bring them up. Like I
Mm-hmm.
said on the live stream the other day, Braun Breaker is the first guy that's going to be anointed a champion from NXT, where Hunter oversaw it, and now Hunter will bring him up at some point, and he will be a star by 2025. I guarantee you that.
Okay, well, guys, thanks for watching. As always, we appreciate it. We're sorry we haven't been live with the content recently. Make sure you do go over and check Dale's live streams out, though, because they're awesome. They really are, buddy.
Thank you.
No, they are. I really enjoy watching them. We're going to start doing some lists on the channel as well, some bits and bobs that'll be coming in the next week or two. But we will make sure that we're a bit more consistent with the things. But if we're
Andy.
not, sue us.
Yeah, please. Here's my address. Let me find a trash bin. So, Andy, for next week, I'm going to pick one for you, okay? And last year, you and I were doing this year in wrestling, the year in reviews.
Mm-hmm.
We touched base on it, but now we're going to actually go into the pay per view. And we're in November, my friend. So, Survivor Series 1995.
Ooh. Ooh. Okay, I'll have a bit of that.
Can I tell you something?
Hmm?
This is one of my favorite pay per views ever.
Yeah. Oh, I'm looking forward to this one. Looking
Absolutely.
forward to this one.
And I know you will too.
Right, guys. Well, thanks so much for watching. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, like the videos, all that good stuff. It doesn't half help us out as well. Go over and follow us on Twitter. I am at Andy Pro Wrestling. Dale is at D42 _ needs to change his user title to make it easier for people. And also go over to Transatlantic Wrestling Talk on Facebook as well and follow us on there. We'll always throw in some good stuff and bits and bobs in there. Some great guys like Anthony and stuff who post stuff and some really
For
good
sure.
stuff going on over there. But from us, guys, until next time, take care.
Peace out, everybody.